And a good Tuesday, right, Ed?
You
Tuesday.
got it. It's not the normal Thursday. It's a Tuesday.
And there's nothing normal about Esplanade. So, yeah, a good Tuesday evening to you, wherever you might be, whether it's down the street, around the corner, across America, or somewhere around this great big world. Thank you for taking the time to tune in. We are waiting for our guest, Teresa Sanders, to arrive. We had Teresa on Thursday night. If you was with us, we thank you for helping us carry the load because Teresa had some technical difficulties. We could hear her, she couldn't hear us. So you guys that was in here, thank you very, very much because you really picked up the load and your questions were fantastic. Uh, and Ed and I really, really appreciate it. I do want to say this. Facebook just makes me talk to myself sometimes. Uh, Maybe I ought to wait till we get some more customers here. Uh, but Ed, remind me I started this conversation because I'll forget that I even started it. But how you doing tonight, buddy?
Well, doing pretty good actually. Things couldn't be better. Couldn't be better. Can't complain. I posted a good evaluation online. I remember getting those evaluations in the government schools, and even though they would check off, it's either unsatisfactory or satisfactory or something, and they would check it off, but the only comments they would make is something negative. So it just illustrates the difference between the government schools and the private Christian school, where they actually you have some value, where you're not just getting through basically a system that just wants to pass people along and make sure everybody gets a big paycheck.
Yeah,
So that's how that today went. I was actually pleasantly not surprised, but pleased to get that.
good, good. Anything else happening up there in Columbus?
Well, just besides the weather changing every minute, today or tomorrow, I think it'll be 70. It's been, I don't know, 60 degree, or excuse me, down to 18 degrees in the car the other day. So it's a little crazy how the weather fluctuates and once and wonder why everybody goes on vacation to Florida and elsewhere.
My my daughter, one of my daughters lives in Louisiana,
Mm-hmm.
and I was talking to her last night, and she was sitting outside. It was early evening, sitting outside. The temperature was like 78 degrees. Sun was shining, the birds were singing, all that stuff. Uh,
Right.
and yesterday, lo and behold, we even had snow flurries here.
You did.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought your weather was so much better than ours.
Well, it is better than yours,
Well, not if it's doing that. It's not.
but when it gets goofy around here. Uh,
Don't tell me. Don't tell me. Global cooling.
that's what it is. Yeah. Uh, there, Scott says Mother Nature needs bipolar medicine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the truth.
yeah. Because all last week it was up in the 70s, and uh, then all of a sudden here comes this crazy stuff, and yeah, we even had some snow flurries yesterday,
Huh.
and I guess they had a doozy in Pennsylvania on I-81. I don't know if you saw that or not. There's a big pile up. Some people got killed
Hmm.
uh, because of the snow squall. People couldn't see. Uh, so it's that time of year, and I know we're all hoping for nice weather and steady as she goes. So, all right. What was I saying here?
I
Come
don't
on.
think you remember, George.
No, you're right. You're right. That's that
That's
half brain cell.
somebody told me you forget more than you remember.
The only thing I remember is I forget, and the only thing I know is I don't know. So, uh,
Never
uh,
gets old, George.
I know, I know. Anyhow, oh yeah, Facebook. I have a hard time figuring Facebook out anymore. Uh, when we do the descriptions of the shows and the scheduling of the shows, and we put it up, and it says what the show is about, who's going to be on, and then down at the little bottom it says there is a reminder and you know that. Then when you try to share it out, it really gets squirrely. Uh, because we'll stream into our uh, Yes Beloved show page, and when you try to bring it out of there and share it with other people, it gets all afflicted and goofy. And so, I usually have to go to my wife's thing, and then she does it, and blah 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 blah. So anyhow, I said all that to say this: if you're in here tonight and you saw the schedule, the thing up there that said about the show tonight at 7:30, are you getting notified? You used to get notified when we'd come on. Are you getting notified that we're going live? Like tonight at 7:30, or no? There's Alice. Hello, peeps. She said. Uh, so,
George, you understand what that peeps means, right?
yeah, I got that part. Yeah,
okay.
I just learned that yesterday, as a matter of fact.
Well, that's good because I want to make sure.
Yeah. So, I'm just curious because I'm really, really struggling with this thing, and it just makes me scratch my head, and it makes me wonder. You got any comments, Ed, along those lines?
Well, when you scratch your head, is there any hair left?
Not in the middle. No.
Okay.
No, not in the middle. I always scratch it on the side now because there's nothing in the middle. I don't want to leave no skid marks.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I got some starting to leave. Maybe, as a matter of fact, if too much leaves, I might have to have my wife smack somebody in case someone talks bad about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just tell people I have more face now. Yeah. So
well, that's better.
It's less shampoo, more soap.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So anyhow, do you have any comments about this crazy Facebook stuff thing that I'm not getting?
No, not really. Just that I don't want to say too much on Facebook. I've already been pulled down. Right now, I'm also on probation on Facebook, as you can see my title. So everything is clearly censored. So I watch what I say, but they've already taken down my YouTube, and until Truth Social gets going in the right way, where it gives you an app for regular old people that can't afford the iPhones, then got to deal with Facebook for now. Work within the system. But at any rate, these articles, actually this research called 17 Reasons, and on the surface, it kind of, anyone in their right mind would say, well, no, duh. But what is it about football that makes it work?
Say that again, because you're froze up.
No. Well, that's wild. Okay, back again.
Yeah.
What do you think? Why do you think football is so successful and schools are not?
That's their focus point. Education secondary.
What is it about football that makes it successful?
Well, Professor, tell me.
Well, think about it. Is it hard to get volunteers to help out for football versus volunteers, let's say, to help out for school?
Oh, no. They'll help. They'll help with football.
Okay, especially because they're incentivized, because they, in the back of their mind, might be hoping that Johnny gets a little playing time if they volunteer a little extra.
That's true. And
yeah,
perhaps Johnny will get enough playing time that somebody might have their eye on Johnny and he gets a scholarship.
Yeah, so I had, I never forget, I was coaching a sport, I won't say which one, and one of the parents bought uniforms for the whole team. And I said, wow, this is awfully nice of them. I didn't realize at the time they were trying to get a little extra playing time for their kids. And didn't realize that until soon after that. They were coaching a team, and their kids kind of never left out of the game. It's amazing how that worked. But we appreciated the new uniforms. But there's always a catch-22. But what I'm getting at is, though, that people handle school. If they handled school or treated school the same way they treated sports, we might have a heck of a lot better sports. Well, first off, when a student or a player says, you know what, I'm getting recruited by Ohio State, but they're not just getting recruited by Ohio State. They're getting recruited by schools all over the country. They have choice. And of course, those schools want to, up the ante and make different offers and so on and so forth. So there's a competition to get players, and there's a competition. The players obviously are competing with each other for these spots and the chance to obviously be successful and have a lifelong success. I mean, if you played for Ohio State, no matter if you're a name brand at Ohio State, you might as well write your ticket the rest of your life, because you're always going to be able to land a commercial or some type of a job just on your name recognition. And so there's a value to the things that you do. At any rate, what do you do on a football field that you should do in a classroom?
Well, you're learning.
Well, you're learning, but who do you learn from?
You're learning from the coaches.
Well, that's true. But when you're on the field, the coaches are, instructing, and the starter has an attitude. What happens? Well, guess what? It's next guy up. Mm-hmm. But so the players, go 2, 3, 4 deep, and they're competing with each other. They're wanting to be the best. They're learning from the older guys and so on and so forth. But there's awards banquets, there's Letterman jackets, banners, festivals, team photos. What about for academics? Well, yeah, you have at the end of the quarter, you might get a few awards here and there. But the ongoing, it's not like the media is showing up to a school event saying, "Hey, whoa, I heard you guys got 3 A's last week. Let me interview you. How'd you do it? Did you study for 10 hours this week?" So there's a whole different type of incentive system set up for the athlete, which is not a complaint of the athletics. It's actually maybe we can learn something from these sports venues and these competitive sports that schools can learn from, and maybe, just maybe, we would have some better schools. For example, George, if Johnny wanted to have 10 different schools to choose from, do you think maybe all 10 of those schools would compete for that kid versus if they knew they were guaranteed to get that student? What do you think?
Yeah. What if they're all the same type of schools?
That's a good point. They would definitely want to, schools would need to diversify to stand out, right? Mm-hmm. So they could, specialize, let's say, or maybe, just like remember they used to have all the career centers. Almost all the schools used to have the kind of the career centers within them. And now then they went to having a couple career centers, and every year it's like there's less career centers and more, the same subject material, and getting rid of electives, which is the whole incentive to go to school in the first place. Those kids want to do the electives. They don't want to do the reading, writing, arithmetic. Not to say there's anything wrong with learning those. You better learn those, but they don't look forward to those. Those are just, you got to get through them. Whereas the electives, that's what incentivizes kids to go. And what's the first programs they cut? Electives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let the old guy, I know, here comes the old guy. He walked 15 miles to school one way in the snow and the sleet and the slop.
Barefoot.
Barefoot. Sometimes we wrapped our feet in rags. But nonetheless, when my wife and I went to school, that was back in the Stone Age.
Flintstones?
Well, yeah, we had school in the cave, and our chalkboard was the cave walls. So they call it hieroglyphics. They think they discovered something. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But that was us learning. But anyhow, when we went to school, and we talk about this a lot, we went to school and we were expected to learn. Not only was we expected to learn, the teachers were expected to teach. And that they did. In fact, I was talking with Dr. Teresa on the phone the other night, and we were talking about kids today can't write cursive and can't read cursive. We had, that it started in third grade, we did what was called Peterman's penmanship. That was the fellow that developed this thing, Peterman's penmanship. And you were taught penmanship. You weren't taught to scribble. Don't you dare scribble. You were taught to be neat, for it to be plain. And my dad, if he caught me writing my name, we used to have to write our name on every paper that we wrote or test or whatever. If he caught me writing my name just, in a hurry, he'd get quite upset with me. And he'd say, boy, every time he'd get mad at me or upset with me, he'd call me boy. And when he said boy, I knew I was in trouble, and I knew what I did. He'd say, boy, that's your name. And I'd look at him, and I'd wait for a few seconds, and then he'd say, I said, that's your name. I said, yes, sir, that's my name. He said, that's your name. You only have one name. And so you do two things. You make sure your name stays clean, and you write your name legible. And that always stuck with us. And we were graded on Peterman's penmanship. We were graded on our writing. Now, they can't write cursive. They can't read cursive.
Now, why do you think that that's discouraged?
Ed, I've tried to figure that out.
I got to figure it out.
Do you? Tell me then.
Well, yeah, because what are all the original documents written in?
Yeah. Okay.
You think about that?
No, I never thought about that. That's a good point.
Of course it is, George. But anyways, yeah. So if you can't read the historical documents, then it's much more easy to rewrite history, isn't it?
Well, yeah. It just what the title says. It's much easier to dumb down America, right?
Yep, it certainly is, and it's a little nutty, but it seems like everything used to be a conspiracy theory. It turns out these conspiracy theories are coming true. Alex Jones, he's in still many circles is seen as a little out there, but and I used to tell a kid when I was teaching at the public school, he said, Alex Jones this and Alex Jones. I said, man, that dude's wacko. And I said, some of the stuff is easily disproven. But I did tell him this. I said, down the road, it's going to be people like him that you're going to have to listen to because you're not going to be able to believe anything else. Mm-hmm. And exactly what's going on. Now, the craziest wacko that was not credible at the time, all of his crazy theories and predictions, wow, and guests that he gets on are the ones that just so happen to be telling the truth.
Yeah.
It's amazing how that works.
Well, you was talking about all those electives and stuff. We had, I went to a big high school in our city. There was Altoona High School, and there was Bishop Guilfoyle, which was the Catholic high school. We had like 3 junior highs, and our grades ran in junior high from like 7th, 8th, and 9th. Mm-hmm. And then you went to the high school. The high school consisted of 10, 11, and 12. And in Altoona High, we had over 4,000 students. Every graduation, there was over 1,000 kids graduating. But when you got into high school, even into junior high, you had shop class. In high school, they had a masonry class, a wood shop class, a printing class, all those type of things to prepare fellows that wasn't thinking about going to college, but they were going to get into these skilled places, work as masons, printers, so on and so forth. Now, there is none of that. and the girls had home ec, and I can't say the girls because there were boys that took home ecs, and no, they weren't sissies, and we
Well,
didn't.
I know in home ec I learned how to sew. And
Yeah,
I'm not telling you I'm real good at it. Don't get me wrong.
right,
But it's
right.
still a good skill to have.
It is, and they learn to cook and they'd sew and do all those things. And now these kids can't boil water,
Right.
and so they dispense with all that. What happened to our trade schools, Ed?
That's a great question. There's not very many of them left. Number one, they're not. They're very selective to get into, which sounds like a great idea. But the problem is, what type of students often are going to go to a trade school? Well, those are the ones that aren't that interested in school. So what they do, these trade schools that we have now, like Columbus has what's called the downtown high school. Well, they are very selective. So those kids that aren't going to do well in school, likely, they're not offered a spot in the trade school. So guess what? So the kids that would already have done well in the regular old school are now in the trade school, which is fine, but they would have made it no matter what. Meanwhile, the kid that wanted to get in that would not do well in the regular ed school would have excelled in that trade school, and now guess what? Lost that opportunity. Well, there goes Dr. Sanders.
There's Dr. Sanders.
Wow. I don't know why I was thinking 6:30 again. So sorry.
That's called time zones. I told George he didn't listen.
Uh, just figure it this way, Teresa. You took the long way home.
Everybody in Delaware lives in a bubble. They just think, just like DC, they live in their little cocoon and think, you know what, the world revolves around us.
You know what it is, Ed? That's why they call it. There's only 3 counties in Delaware, and we're in the southernmost part of the state, and it's only about this big, this long. Well, we live in slower, lower Delaware. So does that tell the rest of the story?
Slower Delaware.
There used to be a guy that used to say that, and now you have the rest of the story.
That's right. That's right. As they say, the rest is history. Yes.
But, Dr. Sanders, you ever heard of the 17 reasons why football is better than high school?
No.
Okay. Well, at any rate, it is, it's a pretty well-researched article. Phi Delta Kappan, Bloomington, article 1998. And it basically just talks about what we can learn from football in schools, including things like, for example, in a typical government school, let's say you have 20 to 30 kids in a class. They're all told to sit still and be quiet. And, it's modeled after Prussia, basically, way back when, and it's really to get kids. The whole idea was to get them ready to join the military or to, drop out in the 8th grade and join some kind of factory system. Mm-hmm. And so, it's not really conducive to individualized plans. No. And, and of course, in football, there's a rah-rah, there's a bunch of volunteers, there's constant feedback, constantly getting better, constantly, something the kids want to do, and so on and so forth. So that's pretty much what the article is in a nutshell. But then there's an article just came out. I don't know if you heard of these guys before, the edadvocate.org.
I've heard of the Ed Advocate. Not super familiar, but I have heard of the Ed Advocate, yes.
Well, they say 18 reasons the United States education system is failing. Let's see if you agree with any of these. All right, here we go. Well, number one reason why parents are not involved enough. What do you think about that?
I agree with that.
All right. And here's the thing I learned about teaching, especially when I was in the government schools. Now, in the private school, if I send I don't even have to call them hardly. I can email them, and I get a response almost right away. Whereas when I was in the government schools, if I called early in the quarter, when the school year first starts, they say, "Why you call me so early? You're harassing my kid." And then I would wait, and then they'd say, "Why'd you wait so long?" The kids, da 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 da. So you couldn't win.
I think
or I,
that's the same with classroom teachers as well.
yeah, and so
Can't
it's
wait.
like it's hard to get a hold of people, and then when you do, and then when you have parent conferences in the government schools, you might have one or two parents show up.
Hmm.
You've been there all day you're there for parent conferences for 8 hours, and two people show up. And so and I'm not saying it's all their fault. I mean, a lot of them are working parents and so on, and it's difficult.
Well, there's
And
also a lot of other reasons. There are a lot of variables in there. Why? I guess I'll try to say it like this: not all parents are welcome in the school setting.
mm,
Mhm.
So we have to kind of look at that door, that parental involvement door swings both ways.
yeah,
So we have our parents who are just disinterested, disconnected, and that's a thing that nobody wants to hear in education. Nobody wants to hear, there are parents who just don't care. There are parents who don't care. And it is what it is, and it's not about any race or class or culture. Some parents simply are not involved or invested in their children's learning. Then
but
you have your parents who are overinvested, who come in and make it really, really difficult for faculty to do their job to an extreme. Then you have your parents who are rightfully upset and frustrated, who want to come in and make sure that there's something going, their children are being taken care of. Sometimes they're not wanted in the school system. They're just not. They don't want the people who are going to put pressure on them to perform. And then you have your isms. There are parental involvement is also a big production. It's a drama. No, not a drama. There's a word that I'm looking for, but it's theatrics. They say they want parents involved. The reality is they want some parents
mhm.
involved. They don't want all parents involved. They want the parents that can control. They want the parents who will go and make the cookies and do this and run off copies. But the second you start holding feet to the fire, they don't really want you there anymore. So you remember the parental involvement door swings both ways.
Dr. Teresa, do you think, and I'm not sure, no, I'm being silly about this. Do you think that behind those public school doors, there are certain people that when they see certain people coming, they such things as, oh boy, here they come.
Yeah, I personally, with my own kid, experienced that once at elementary, once at middle, and once at high school. Well, because let's kind of just go ahead and put it out there. Racism is what it is. There's a lot of people who are afraid of black people. I worked for a principal who once told me in my face she didn't like black parents because they're always in your face. She told me that. And I thought, wow, for you to tell me, whew. So I just thought, okay, all right. Well, the reality is that a lot of times all they see is your color coming. People have their own biases, they have their own stops, they have their own issues, and all they see is your race coming. I had legitimate issues all three times with my kids. With my kid, I only have one son, and the one about H1N1, when that was going on, they didn't have soap in the bathrooms. And my son told me they didn't have soap in the bathrooms. He was in elementary school. And so when I asked them about it, they were a little short with me, a little bit salty with me. So I had to go up and speak to them. They didn't treat me with the respect that they should have treated me with. It took me to go all the way to the top in the district. And by 10 o'clock that night, they had soap dispensers in the bathroom.
What you started alluding to isms? Can you talk about the isms in school?
Yeah, racism, classism, whatever type of isms people have. People have all kind of political isms, physical isms, disability isms, whatever people's isms are. The reality is that we are subject to the mentality of whomever we're dealing with. And so if people have issues with black people or big people or me, I'm outspoken, I'm pretty straightforward, I'm a straight shooter. If that scares you, you're going to have a problem dealing with me. When my I had to go speak to my son's teacher when he was in high school, and for him to ask me to come speak to the teacher, That was pretty significant. And I thought, okay. When I got there, there was no, I had left my own school to come and check on this, and I was ready to go back to work as soon as I was done. There wasn't a situation where there needed to be any conflict, but I was just simply not going to go away and come back. I was told, make an appointment and come back. And I was like, no, I'm not going to make an appointment and come back. You have a conference time. I was told it's at this time. Well, I've got plans for my conference. Well, I wasn't going anywhere. They called the SRO on me. Now, they didn't call and say, come tackle her or anything like that, but he just starts milling around. And I just thought, wow. And I told them, I said, you all say you want parental involvement. Well, here's an involved parent trying to find out something about my son's grade. And you call the SRO on me? I ended up calling the district. Within 5 minutes, they told the school, bring her in and talk to her. What is it that she wants? So I shouldn't have to call the district to ask a question about why did my son get an F? And for him, my son is not an F student. He's always been an AB student, and he didn't understand why. So can we just answer the question why? And that's all that I needed them for. Yet, for whatever reason, they were treating me as though I was less than. I did not deserve an answer. Well, there's the stereotypical parent that comes in loud with flip-flops and head rag on the head or whatever, and it gives a certain picture. But that parent, too, deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. Because across all races and cultures, you have your parents, whether they're driving in a Mercedes or riding a bicycle. They all tend to behave at some point in a way that's unseemly. Every parent deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. Once they found out I was Dr. Sanders, I never, ever, ever had a problem again.
I was going to ask you about that, if that changed how they treated you.
And it did. It really did. And I called them on that. I was like, wow, now that I'm Dr. Sanders, because I never said that before, it's like now you all treat me as though I'm some type of royalty around here. Yeah. And the reality was 3 weeks ago, you didn't want me in your office. But I'm also the type that you can't just scare off. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to get my answer. And then that's that. But people, racism is a thing and bias is a thing. And if I have a thought in your head that this type of person does this, well, I'm going to be expecting that you do that when you come in, which is garbage.
Can I? Never mind. I forgot what I was going to say.
I hate when that happens.
Well, I know that's that one half brain cell that's getting a little dimmer right now. You wait; it'll fire up, Teresa. It'll fire up, and I'll get it right. So,
okay.
Go ahead, Ed. You was going to say.
Well, I was going to say the teachers' unions. What are your thoughts about the teachers' unions and how they affect education?
The teachers' unions. So in Texas, my thought about teachers' unions has always been they are useless. But as I hear stories about teachers' unions in other states, I'm like, whoa, a lot goes on in teachers' unions that I'm just learning that beside the political pushing that they do, which typically tends to be more liberal than conservative, they get behind politicians to do so everybody's getting their needs met politically, and the kids' needs are not being met. The only thing that everybody I know in Texas, we ever joined a union for was to have the insurance in case we were sued for something. Mm-hmm. And you get $1 or $2 million worth of insurance as a union member. So if you're accused of something or something happens and you're being sued for it, you have a way to protect your personal assets. That was the only reason I had ever had use for a teachers union. However, what I'm seeing now and learning about other people's experiences with unions is alarming, very, very alarming. And so yes. I can't get behind teachers unions. They're not doing anything for the teachers. They're not doing anything for the students. Mm-hmm. And they are largely a political moneymaker. They're a political machine.
They're scary. let's put it this way: say somebody I know was a delegate for the CE or the NEA and the CEA and all this, and their constitution that they don't exactly make public is literally reads like Agenda 21, and so it's a like the Communist Manifesto. But
Yeah.
it's very scary. It doesn't surprise all the things that are going on here. Shad down here, I'm gonna pull his question up. Shad asked the question, why would teachers get sued?
Oh my goodness. If you like, I was a behavior teacher, and say I had to restrain a student, and a finger got broken, a head got bumped. Students can say that you've done something, and you may not have done anything at all. And so there's a difference between suing and winning, but you have to go through the suit to sometimes be absolved of any wrongdoing. Accidents do happen in schools, and you can still be sued even if it was a completely 100% accident.
Yeah.
Parents will sue you, and they do. And I've never been sued, and I don't know anyone who has ever. I don't personally know a teacher who's ever been sued, but I know districts have been sued. And also around special education, there can always be lawsuits related to special education. So it may not happen a lot, but there have been teachers who've been accused of things that they had to go to court, and they may have been subject to arrest, and they had to defend themselves. The union does provide an insurance policy to pay your legal fees. They provide a lawyer, that type of thing.
Well, I'll talk two things about that because I have experience with that union, supposedly.
Yes.
But the first thing is they, as far as them suing, yeah. So you could, I've been with people that, breaking up fights, and people they get them in trouble for that. But as far as the union protecting you, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
The union makes deals with the administration. So
Yes.
before you ever even go to have a hearing, they've already made up their mind what they're going to do. The lawyers are pro-union, so if they're trying to get rid of if the union doesn't like the views of the teacher, they make sure that the lawyer is your attorney in name only. They're not defending you at all. I had to start standing up for myself, when I had a hearing, because the lawyer, she called me up to laughing in the background. Oh, yeah, the district wants to do this and this, and I'm thinking they're toying with my job, and you're thinking, and things are funny to you, and so they're as corrupt as it gets.
You know what, Ed? I'm telling you, I've always known that. I could never prove it. It's not like I had any type of example of why would they do that. I'm telling you, I knew it. I knew it. That's why I always noticed that when teachers called the union because administrators were on them or treating them poorly or something, the union was never a help. And you know where else this happens? Special education law. If a family brings like due process or something, do not think for 1 second that the family's attorney and district attorneys sometime are not in bed together. It just, because if they weren't, then more families would walk away with victory in due process, and they don't. So I believe that the system and then the unions and then all the powers that be up the food chain, it is so corrupt and so broken. Just I have no faith in it at all.
Dr. Teresa, let me bring this up, and then I want to ask you about this.
Yeah.
Can
love that.
Yeah, can everyone see that? Can you see it all right?
I can't, but
I
maybe you
can't
guys
read
can
it,
zoom
but
in.
I know what it is.
Okay,
But
let
I love it.
Let me see if I can make it even bigger. let me let me bring up. Anyhow, that picture on your Facebook page,
Mm-hmm.
it says 85% of juveniles who come into contact with the juvenile court system are functionally illiterate.
Mm.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, and countrymen, pay attention to these statistics.
Scary.
60% of all prison inmates are functionally illiterate. Two-thirds, two-thirds of students who cannot read proficiently by the end of the fourth grade. Think about that. By the end of the fourth grade, will end up in jail or on welfare. Two-thirds of students.
Yes.
Two-thirds of students. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Now, you and I were talking one night, and you made a statement, and I wrote it down. And the reason I showed that picture with those statistics was this. You said this. Whoop. You said public education is doing what it's designed to do.
Yeah. Yes.
Uh-oh, what you mean by that?
Yes.
And I looked at that picture and those statistics, and I looked at my notes of what you said. Could you explain that for us?
Yes. Yes. And so the way I what I mean by that is we often say, oh, the system's broken, the system's broken. No, the system's not broken. The system is doing exactly what it's designed to do. The system is not about educating our young people. It's not. This the statistics that you just saw, the failure that we've been dealing with is decades old. This is not new.
Right.
It goes back at least 6-7 decades. We have many qualified people who have answers and who can bring innovation to the table to meet students' needs. However, at every turn, there's a block put up, there's a wall put up, there's some kind of obstacle put up, so we can't teach these kids effectively. If the United States wanted an educated populace, that's what we would have. But that's not what we want. We want people who can't read, can't write, because you're easy to control when you can't read or write. You got to think back at slave time. Remember during slavery where it was a capital offense to learn how to read or write, or to be caught teaching someone to read or write. Why is that? Why would that be a capital offense? Because when you're literate, you can navigate the world in a different way.
Uh-huh.
When you can't read or write, you're subject to whatever anybody tells you because you can't read it and you can't write it.
Well, listen,
if you
George,
can't read, you can't learn.
the George Espinlob show is not just about identifying problems. What are the solutions?
I believe that there are lots of solutions, but the solutions are outside of the school system.
Mhm.
Because the system is designed to push ideology, to share with students what to think, as opposed to teaching them how to think. This is not about making sure we have learned, critical thinking young people who are going into young adulthood, going out and taking over the world. Nah, we are being set up. We are being set up. We are being positioned. Remember, George, the great takeover.
Yep.
We are being set up to
Now,
be
that's the words I remember. So,
Uh-huh.
what do you mean by the great takeover? What is this about?
And it's sad, Ed, because in my head, I don't know exactly what the great takeover looks like. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's another country. I don't know if it's technology. I don't know what it is, but I do know we will eventually be subservient to another entity. We will, because our populace doesn't know how to think. Our populace does not know how to advocate for themselves. we have been trained to take stimulus, this, welfare, that, this, that. We don't want to get up and work. We don't want to work hard. We don't want to pay our dues. We don't want to do that. We have the patience of a sleepy gnat. So, what else can we do besides be dominated? So, when you control the food, the housing, the medicine, the water, and the money,
And
you
the
are
masks?
ultimate control.
What about the masks?
What about the masks? Is
Yeah.
that masks? That's a battle that I don't have an opinion on one way or the other
Should we be
because
wearing them right now?
I'm sorry.
Should we be wearing them right now?
No, I don't think so. Not in your own house.
Mm.
And wearing a mask is, in my opinion, an individual thing. I, for me, the whole COVID thing is really an overblown distraction.
Mm.
Is it real? Yeah, people get sick. People were dying. I get all of that, and no disrespect or anything to anybody who lost someone out there. However,
Mhm.
there is information and there's data and there's science and there's all kinds of stuff that if you don't know how to read, research, vet information, if you don't know how to do that, all
Or
you
find
do,
find alternate ways of getting information other than Google.
you have to. Well, what have we been? We have a whole generation that's been trained on Google, and a lot of that generation believes if it came off the internet, if it came off of a .org site, if it came off of a .gov site, it
Mm.
must be reliable information. That's rubbish.
Mhm.
But of course, the media is going to the media is a moneymaker. The media is not about let's do what's right by the people. The media is a controlled moneymaker. That's it. So if you don't know how to find information outside of the mainstream media, then you're going to have maybe some flawed ideas about what's going on. COVID is definitely not my battle. If I have to go to the store and wear a mask, I'll put a mask on. I have no problem with wearing it. It's not my fight. I don't care. But it's the bigger thing of what's happening here. I'm not sure about that vaccine because I don't know enough about it. And I know that everybody who's given me information has a vested interest in it. So therefore, I'm not going to do that. However, if you want to do that, whatever blows your hair back, I respect anybody for whatever they want to do. For me, I've got my own thoughts. Other people may feel differently.
So, if you can't read, you can't learn.
If you can't read, you can't learn.
Those statistics on the back of that man's shirt,
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Teresa, I don't know how many times I went and looked at that thing
Mm-hmm.
and read it. And it seemed like each time I read it a little bit slower. And I
Mm-hmm.
got to thinking, two-thirds,
That's a
two-thirds of kids, if they can't read proficiently by the fourth grade, two-thirds. And I was thinking, how many kids are in this country? And I was trying to do this thing in my head, and I couldn't get my head wrapped around it. And I thought, oh my goodness.
So we have 4 million fourth graders in the United States. That was last year. So at any given time, roughly, I'm sure, 4 million fourth graders. Almost 70% of them are not reading proficiently.
Mm.
Almost 70%
Wait a minute.
are
Wasn't
not.
it just in Milwaukee where 0% of the kids passed the standardized tests?
That's sad. So when I hear that, when I hear what Ed just said, that disgusts me on a level. It frustrates me as a human being and as a mom and as an educator. Why are we accepting that? And so, and the literacy failure existed long before COVID.
Yeah.
Long before COVID. So they talk a lot about pandemic losses. Ah, that was well before COVID. It is not unusual to have students, eighth grade, ninth grade, 10th grade, who can't identify all letters of the alphabet. absolutely unconscionable. That's just unacceptable. That's a school failure. It's also a home failure, but we're the educators. We're supposed to be teaching. How does a child get all the way there and can't read? My former brother-in-law, best guy in the whole world, good guy. We're all still very close with his family, even though he's not with my sister anymore. 1977, he couldn't read or write when he graduated. What? How is that? That was 1977. And then I'm in Dallas. So let's look at Baltimore. Let's look at Chicago. Let's
Mhm.
look at DC, LA. How much work, New York, how much worse is it in some of those areas?
Can I put this up here real quick?
Sure.
Uh, and as Dr. Teresa said, we've got the answers.
Mm-hmm.
It's what we're fighting against and who we are fighting against that's causing the big problem. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you can look at me like I got two heads, and that's all right. But let me tell you something. One of my favorite movies is The Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
And one of the best parts of that whole movie is this. You know, when they get to Oz and they get into the castle or the hooch or whatever it's called, and the wizard's there. They're, because they were off to see the wizard. And he's gonna make everything all right. Gonna give one a brain. Oh boy. Uh anyhow, they're in short supply. Gonna give one a heart. What was the other one? A brain, a heart,
Courage,
courage. Yeah, yeah. Come on,
Reliance.
I'll fight you one hand behind my back. Yeah,
Yes.
and get Dorothy a ride home.
A ride home.
Now, when they got in there, the big curtain, and you all, if you ever seen the movie, you know that all of a sudden everybody saw what was behind the curtain, and back there's dude. I don't know what his name was, but I'll call him dude. Back there's dude. He's pulling handles and switching things, and things are popping and banging and booming. And all of a sudden, he's been exposed. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's what's been going on. Dr. Teresa said it's been decades in the coming.
Yes.
Absolutely correct. But because
Yep.
we've fallen asleep at the switch,
Yep.
this man right here, this man's writings, Saul Alinsky, he died 50 years ago, 49 years ago. Let me tell you something. You look up this guy, How to Create a Social State by
Wow.
Alinsky. And he said there's 8 levels. This is what has to be taken over in order to accomplish a social state.
Wow.
Health care, control it.
We went after
For
religion
healthcare.
during COVID.
Yeah, control health care and you control the people.
That's right.
Poverty. Increase the poverty level as high as possible. Poor people are easier to control and will not fight back if you are providing everything for
That's
them to
right.
live.
Mm.
Debt. Increase the debt to
Woo!
Doing plenty of that.
sustainable level. That
True.
way, you're able to increase taxes,
Mm.
and this will produce more poverty.
Didn't we just get through like printing out money and just handing it all out
Yep.
like it was
Yeah,
growing on
indeed.
trees? Like, whoa.
Record
Gun
inflation.
control. Remove the ability to defend themselves from the government.
Mm. Mm.
That way, you're able to create a police state.
Yeah.
Welfare. Take control of every aspect of their lives. Food, housing, income. Dr. Teresa had already mentioned that. Let me get this goofy thing out of the way. Where was it, Ed? Yeah. All right.
Wow.
Education. Take control of what people read and listen to. Take control of what children learn in school. If you can't read, you can't learn. You can't think through a simple problem. You are told what to think. You are told when to think it, how to think it. You become almost like a robot. Religion, remove the belief in the God from the government and schools and
Right.
class welfare. Divide the people into the wealthy and the poor. This will cause more discontent. It will be easier to take taxes, the wealthy with the support of the poor.
Yeah.
He
Yep.
wrote that a long time ago. He died in 1972.
So is that coincidental, or has this been in the making
This
for
is
a
all,
long time?
this has been in the making for a long.
Called by different names, but it's still there.
Yep.
That's exactly correct. So,
That's behind the curtain. That's what's going. That's dude behind the curtain.
pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Remember when he was exposed?
Yep.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. And it's the same thing that we're dealing with right now. Pay no attention to all the naysayers who are saying this, and then this. Pay no attention to the people who are saying that or questioning the science and this. That's the same thing. But when you're used to getting everything from them, you're going to be quiet because they control everything. When they started throwing out stimulus checks and a lot of free money, I thought something is up, because how do you get everybody to clap and say, yay, a
Mhm.
free check?
Mhm.
Everybody loves that. Everybody loves
Mhm.
free money. Even people with money love free money. And so when they started doing that, I said, okay, so what is going on here? I already knew the schools are toast. That I already know. So what are the answers now? Well, we are from that article that you read, everybody should be looking at that.
Mhm.
That's something I will post on my social media, because sadly that's where we are. Even with the gun control, I live in Texas. Texas is a heavy gun friendly state. I can't imagine them de-arming Texas. I just can't imagine that. But when you put a chokehold on the ammunition,
Mhm.
you can effectively de-arm somebody. Now, there's always ways around that, just like there's always ways around of having a weapon. However, look at how expensive ammunition has gotten, to where, okay, you can get it if you're willing to pay top dollar for it.
Right.
And what is that doing? That's driving ranges out of business somewhere, because if nobody's coming there to shoot, then that's their livelihood that's being messed with. I
Dr.
think
Teresa, I hate to interrupt you, but we only have like a minute left.
hit it.
Let me say this real quick.
Hmm.
The alarms being sounded. Pay attention, as in the days of Noah were.
Yep.
As in the days of Noah were. I'm not going to tell you about that. You go into the book of Genesis and you look it up and you read about it. You go into the New Testament, Jesus spoke about it. As in the days of Noah. It's here. It's here.
And
We,
remember when Noah started building that boat, it wasn't raining.
oh, no, no. They didn't know what rain was.
Yeah, it wasn't
No,
raining when he started building that boat. They laughed at him when he
they
started
laughed.
building that
They
boat.
laughed. It took them 120 years to build that big thing.
What are you doing? What are you
Yeah.
doing? What are you doing?
They laughed and
Mhm.
ridiculed and had a good old time.
Mhm.
But Noah had the answers.
He did.
He had the answers. We have the answers, ladies and gentlemen, and we got to get out of here. Oh man, this was just fun. We got to get out of here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Please share this out there. Everybody needs to hear it. We could have a marathon about this. But
Oh,
until then, whether you're down the street, around the corner, across America, or somewhere around this great big world, thank you so very, very much for tuning in. Good night, everybody.